and welcome to the Seahawks 360 podcast, where we look at the Seahawks from every angle. I'm Candace Higgins,
And I'm Tino
and we are back to discuss OTAs and other fun things related to the Seahawks. Today, Tino and I have 53-man predictions for you guys, and so we'll go through, I guess we'll go position by position and just kind of talk it through. But any thoughts on any news that's come through before we get started, Tino? I know OTAs have come out. There's only been like one day of true like reports from the media. They just attended OTAs yesterday, but any even things happening around the division? Anything you want to chop it up about before we get into the roster?
Yeah, I think, obviously the line is always going to be my focus until they fix it. I thought it was interesting. We'll talk about it later too. That they had Haynes and Bradford competing at right guard, and Laumea they said was backing up Zabel, who was starting. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I do too.
I found that pretty interesting. I also, not to get us started too soon, but Devon Witherspoon, did you read his quote about his initial impressions of Sam Darnold?
I did. I saw the clip. So yeah, I saw the clip. Yeah. So essentially, for those who have not heard the clip, essentially his response was, what does he say? He's got his strengths and his weaknesses.
Yeah, I got it right here. I read it and I'm like, oh man, this is not good.
It wasn't a good practice for Sam Darnold. I think we could just start there. Like it was not a good look for him. He did not look comfortable at all in the offense, and it's never going to be a good thing for me when Drew Lock is the best quarterback on the field.
I'm good. You never know.
Certainly makes me nervous, man. It certainly does. I don't love. You don't love to see it. I understand it's OTAs. It's a new offense. There's a lot of new pieces to it. I get all of that, but you certainly don't want to hear that. Given especially that it's a similar system that Darnold's been in, so it's not like it's brand new. Like he's never been in anything like this before. You'd like for him to have a little bit more command of the offense. You got comments from Cooper Kupp talking about how he's, they're already talking through the details of certain things, but it's not matching the play on the field.
Here's the quote. And if somebody said this about me, I'd be like, all right, I know you don't think I'm good. You're saying
the bare minimum, like it's not an insult, right?
You're saying the PC thing you're supposed to say. He sounded like Alex Rodriguez right here for y'all baseball fans. So Devon Witherspoon on his initial impressions of Darnold, quote, he's got his strengths, he's got his weaknesses like every quarterback. Now he's on our team. He's going to go out there and make a lot of plays for us. So we put a lot of trust in him, and I believe he's going to deliver. That's like the owner giving the coach a vote of confidence when the team is like 3-10. You know what I'm saying? That's what that is. Because, and when have you ever known Devon Witherspoon to not be demonstrative and, pumping it up? And like, he's like that just in general. He's high energy on the field, off the field. Like he's a leader. He's nuts. He's the driver of the, driving force of that defense. And he's coming out saying like, he's our quarterback now. He's has some strengths, has some weaknesses. That's not a good sign.
No, I think it's extremely concerning because I'm not sure. The only thing you could say that would be worse would just be a direct insult and will probably be extremely controversial at that point. So like it's the bare minimum. It's like barely positive.
You almost
just passes the mark.
Like he'd be like, well, he's no Geno Smith, but he's our quarterback, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
that's kind of what he might as well have said that. As far as
that's what you get for sure. And I've never been big on Sam Darnold. I just haven't. You have to hope that he can be at least average in this offense, but stuff like that makes me nervous of everything I'm afraid of, and why I've not been a Sam Darnold fan. I do understand that. I think some of the critiques and people assuming that he'll turn back into a bumpkin to some extent might be a little overrated in the sense of people giving 100% credit. When people are talking about this in the media, it sounded like they've given all credit to Justin Jefferson, they give all credit to Kevin O'Connell, and I'm not saying that they don't. I think, in my opinion, over this all season, my opinion has been that he is a downgrade from Geno Smith, clearly, in my opinion. But also, I think it's been overstated how big of a role they played because they did not have a good offensive line. They ultimately had a ton of injuries, just like the Seahawks did, and it all fell apart those last two games. And I think those weaknesses showed. But I think people put a little bit too much credit in terms of wiping away the whole year for the last two games. No important that they may be. I get that. But at the same time, I almost be curious, and one thing I might go back and do before our next episode is kind of see what the comments were on Sam Darnold for the Vikings going into that year. I would be curious as to first OTAs if that could be found. What the quotes were, what the players were saying right after JJ Redick, not JJ Redick, I'm thinking NBA. JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy, when he went down, I'd love to hear what some of the comments when Sam started getting those starter reps. Was he struggling initially at that point as well? There's still a ton of time in the off season for Sam to get better, to get more comfortable. From what I understand, Cooper Kupp is a tough guy to he's a tough guy to get comfortable with, to get chemistry with because of how he runs routes and makes all his routes look the same. Oh, Sajan, what's up? Sajan, appreciate you listening in, joining in. Welcome to the show. Uh, but I think that can take some time. I think that's understandable, but it's just not encouraging. What you love to hear, even if you're like me and have been nervous about Sam Darnold and recognizing that it's a downgrade, and if you've been hoping that he can be at least somewhat close to what he was last year, this is not an encouraging sign. Again, don't want to overrate it. Obviously, you know, so much time until we actually get to kicking off real football, but you wish that he was you wish he had a little bit better of feedback than what we got from Devin Witherspoon. But the guy's gonna tell it like it is too. I think there are plenty of other guys that probably would have asked and they maybe would have been able to you know flower it up a little bit more, but that's what it was. I'd be curious to see if we continue to get comments like that throughout
Mhm.
as OTAs continue, or if as he shows himself and he gets comfortable, does he begin to earn the respect of his teammates a little bit more than he has right now?
What do you think? So, what do you think the team needs for statistically and otherwise to win? To win multiple playoff games from Darnold this season.
To win multiple playoff games?
Yeah, like, thank you.
I don't think they have multiple playoff games in them. I'm just gonna be on. Not this year. I don't anticipate this being the year they can pull off multiple playoff games. One would be a dream come true, in my opinion.
Mhm.
If they can get a win, that would be that'd be great. Um, were you meaning long term or like this year?
I'm just thinking like I'm thinking like from a stat standpoint, you know, is it 30 touchdowns and less than 10 interceptions, and they're able to run the ball really well? Is it 40 touchdowns from your quarterback because you don't think the running game is going to be good? Like how high does he need to take his game in order for this team to have you know a really positive season? Because for me, I think the surrounding parts are going to be pretty good, right? And again, we'll get into it with the roster, but the O line, I actually have some confidence that the O line is going to be okay. Um, Looking at this 53-man projection, I think it's not going to be great necessarily, but I think there's the potential for it to be average or slightly above. And if it's that, then now you're looking at, what do you need from Darnold? Because I think Cup is going to, as long as Cup's healthy, he's going to be pretty good. JSN is going to be another year better. I think that if Kubiak does implement a system that works, he's going to establish some sort of running game. I really do like. I don't love it, but I like the running back room. This defense is going to be nasty, right? It's the quarterback. As long as the line is okay, the quarterback is the question. It still is the question, even though we signed Sam Darnold. So I guess my question is, how good does Sam Darnold have to be for this team to be good?
Uh, I think it's a good question. It depends on your definition. Like in terms, if you're defining the season by playoff success, I think that's misleading because we've seen him play at an extremely high level throughout the regular season and not amount of playoff success. We can analyze the context around that, but that's the reality. So in terms of successful regular season, I just think you need him to be average. I really do because of the schedule. I'm high on the schedule. I think the schedule is pretty favorable. Overall,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have a ton of juggernaut. I think the biggest juggernaut you're going to face is with the Washington Commanders. There's just not any teams that you look at and you're like a Buffalo Bill. Like last year, there was the Buffalo Bills, and then there were just all these teams that outside of your division as well. There weren't a ton, but there were enough teams that outside of your division were just looked at as really good teams, like
Yeah.
casting the Green Bay Packers, right? Like there are just no teams I feel like that are on that level.
Elite, right?
The closest maybe the Texans. You could argue 2 and 4 that we'll see what they'll be, but you know because of that, I think they can have a lot of regular season success if he can just be average. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're wide receivers, if Cooper Cup hasn't completely fallen off a cliff already, it's not too
Right.
late for that.
Right.
Then I think you need those two things because you also do need the wide receivers to get open. And based on some of the reports for OTAs, that was a problem as well.
Struggle.
Obviously, DK is
Mm-hmm.
missed.
Mm-hmm. I I would go in the direction with Darnold that he needs to not turn the ball over, right? Which he has had a propensity to do at times. And he needs to be able to find a comfort in converting third down. I think if you can get to, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, whether it's through short passing or the running game or whatever, that he's accurate and that he's poised on third down and that he creates chemistry with JSN, specifically JSN and Cooper Cup, in order to convert. Because if you can convert some third downs and you don't turn the ball over and you can establish the running game to a certain extent, then you let the defense really lead you, right? And I think that to me would be a successful season from Darnold, is to not turn the ball over and to convert on a decent number of third downs. I don't need deep passes. I don't need 35, 40 touchdowns, right? It's balance. It's establishing the running game. It's not turning the ball over and making stupid throws. And it's being able to, like I said, and a lot of that is on Kubiak as well. It's being able to convert on 3rd and 5 or less consistently. And I think if they do that, they're on the right track, right? That's the formula in my mind to success for this team in the next couple of years. I just don't know if Darnold is that guy. I don't know if Darnold can be that guy. I don't know.
I think that's a good question. And I would argue that you do need some level of explosive plays. I just don't think you can be a functional NFL offense and not be able to, at least on occasion, threaten the defense. You have to, on occasion, be able to, or the defense is just going to dare you to do that, and you're going to have to do it in order
Sure.
to prove it wrong. So you need the bare minimum in that regard. I agree with you in principle, but I can't completely get on board. But I think in theory, you need them to be a game manager. Like that pretty much what you described is game management. You need
Mhm.
him to be a quality game manager. Can he be that? Like you said, yet to be determined. But I do wish that we had. I think the biggest challenge I struggle with how this offseason went is you lost both the quarterback and the wide receiver. I was
Mhm.
always in my mind, there was a scenario where you lost one or the other. You
Mhm.
either went with DK or you went with Gino.
Mhm.
I didn't anticipate losing both. And I
Mhm.
just think that I don't think they've done enough to overcome that gap with both. Now, granted, the market for wide receiver was pretty barren, right? Which is why you got a decent return for DK.
Mhm.
But it also leaves you in a situation where I'm almost wishing that there's some magical trade, some unhappy wide receiver that mid-year, presents themselves because the Seahawks have the cap space.
Right.
Really, they have the cap space to. Everybody's talking about these trade scenarios. Trey Hendrickson or Jalen Ramsey has kind of been the topics of conversation. But I'm wondering, can we get a wide receiver in the room? Like
Right.
that's what I want to know, because I think that's really what, if you're trying to give Darnold his best chance, I think you could do a little bit more to help him out in that department, that in the offensive line.
Right. It to me, it looks like, there are good offenses where you have three, four, even five receivers who are all good and no one's great. But if they're all good, you can have some semblance of a very, very good offense, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
especially if you have some overlap and some different skill sets. And I think to me the big problem goes back to you know the MVS role, the deep threat role,
Hmm.
because that's if you don't have that deep, I want to threaten downfield the way you were talking about. I think that is important, even if it's play action and you take a shot three times, knowing you're never going to convert, but you just need them to respect the deep ball and play too deep.
Right.
That's enough to get the running game started. That's enough to get the short passing game going. Who's going to do it though? Because MVS is not truly a threat. We talked about his statistics last podcast. Horton, I think Torrey Horton Jr. can be.
Yeah.
He ran sub 4.4, but he
Right.
may not be healthy at the beginning of the year. And you're still counting on what, a fifth round pick to
Yeah.
be that guy. And
Right.
that's a scary proposition. I liked what I saw to Cody White. Ricky White the third had some good plays in college. Derek Young is still kind of an untapped talent, but you can't go in expecting one of those no name type dudes or a fifth round pick coming off an injury to be your number one deep threat. And
Yeah.
so that's the scary part to me is I could see a scenario, as you said, where we're not facing too deep, right? We're facing single high, and you've got eight guys in the box all the time
Hmm.
in the modern day NFL, and you have all of these schemes to run the ball and to pass, short and crossing patterns and all the other stuff they want to do, and none of it works because it's crowded
Yeah.
because you can't throw deep, right? That's the fear, and that
That's
was what
fair.
we saw when DK went out. Is we talked about it when DK got injured, and we both said, you watch, like this offense is going to look very different because despite the fact that DK is not putting up numbers, what he does to change the defense is really telling.
Hmm.
And I'm sure we are already missing that. So that's my fear is you get into those situations, you're facing eight guys in the box. Now you're trying to convert, like I said, on 3rd and 3. And instead of one guy in a zone covering over the middle, now you've got two. Or instead of two, now you've got three. And it's congested. And we all know JSN and Cooper Kupp don't create a ton of separation. So now Darnold has the pressure on him to be incredibly accurate
Yeah.
every single time, which he's not necessarily, especially with pressure.
Hmm.
It's just there's a lot of things that could go south very quickly. But again, that's why I go back to converting on 3rd down, whatever the circumstances are, and not throwing interceptions and not fumbling the ball. To me, that's a successful season from Darnold if he can do those things.
Yeah. I almost think in an indirect way, it puts a little bit of pressure on Jalen Milroe to be
Mm-hmm.
functional enough to at least be a part of a package
Sure.
and be a threat that way. Because when I'm thinking of the best case scenario for the Seahawks, I'm sort of envisioning that option, the
Mm-hmm.
ability to go to Jalen Milroe to convert those 3rd downs to be a threat on with his legs, because that's not what Sam Darnold's going to be. But just having that extra component, I think, helps make up a little bit in terms of scouting when for what you lost with DK. DK was a scouting guy, like teams, like we
You
talked
had,
about
you had the game plan.
around exactly. Jalen
Mm-hmm.
Monroe makes up a little bit of that component, and so you're not missing that as much. I
Right.
think they need that. They either need Jalen Monroe to be functional enough to be in packages, or they need Torrey Horton, like you said, to be that guy. And ultimately, thinking and hearing the reports out of OTA, my takeaway is just that they have got to find a way to make the wide receiver room better.
Mm-hmm.
I think they can't just roll with what they're rolling with and then expect good things, because there's actually quite a bit that can go wrong, like you
Right.
just laid out. Even if Sam Darnold's doing fine, it's a tough spot for any quarterback. I think fans, most of the fan base, they overlook how much Geno had to overcome
For
on
sure.
this offense. I think everybody's about to find out how much how
There,
much problems, even if the offensive line is decent, even if Sam Darnold is decent, it could all fall apart on the wide receiver room.
there are three modern day quarterbacks that succeeded with wide receiver rooms that look like this. One was Tom Brady, because they just said, we don't care how good the receivers are. Tom Brady's going to spread it around and he's going to be fine because he's that good. And he
Right,
was,
right.
right? It's Kansas City not investing a ton of resources in wide receiver or letting them go, right? And then bringing more in because they know Mahomes is going to make them better.
Hmm.
And it's Buffalo not prioritizing the wide receiver room specifically last year because they knew they had Josh Allen. Those are the only three off the top of my head where you can really roll with that formula and
Lamar,
succeed.
Lamar,
And
Lamar
Lamar,
Jackson.
yes, to a certain extent. I think Lamar's had great tight ends virtually his whole time there.
That's fair.
And I also think that Lamar is so different because of his running threat that it really
Right.
just it's like Steph Curry, right? Steph Curry changes the geometry
Yeah.
of trying to defend the Warriors because he can shoot from everywhere and he's such a threat. I think Lamar does something similar to a defense because of his threat to run.
Hmm.
Honestly, the more we talk it through and I look at like what happens if JSN goes down, right? For say 4 games.
Ooh.
Now it's Cup and MVS, right?
Oh gosh, you
Like
really made a good point.
what
That's
happens if the line
devastating.
can't what happens if the line can't pass block,
Yeah.
right? Like there are the more I look at it, the more I feel like if this is just me running the Hawks, I'd give Darnold 4 games to start 4-0. And if you don't start 3-1, 4-0, I'm going to Milrow just to see what I have, knowing that likely we're gonna come out of it either saying Milrow's the dude and we got something here, or you're gonna say Milrow's not a starting quarterback in the NFL based on what we've seen over the course of like 13 games, but we finished, 4-13, and we're gonna go pick a quarterback and rebuild that way because there's no upside with starting Darnold, right? There's no upside because the two extreme results are you make the playoffs and you start building this culture and you may win a playoff game or two if he's really 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 good and your line plays well and the receivers are fine and the defense is what we think, or you go 7-10, 8-9, and you're picking in the middle of the first round and you don't get the premium quarterback because you were too good to do it.
I genuinely disagree. I disagree. I don't know if I can disagree stronger. Because you don't have to choose one or the other to start. You have the ability to put Jalen Monroe and get him reps and get the floor
You
of
don't
a
know
veteran
you don't know what
player.
you have though if you're just giving them reps here and there.
I think you know exactly what you have, because he's the type of prospect that is not ready. He won't. You put him in right now, he won't be
Totally,
ready. I think
totally.
you
No, I'm saying
kill
you need to see
any
growth. I'm not
chance
saying
of.
he's going to be ready. I'm saying you need to see growth. That this has to be a year where you are using the year to evaluate to make decisions.
But 4 games
There's no upside.
is
But
not.
there's no upside.
So here's an observation I heard about from Brian Nimhauser today. He mentioned this on his Hot Blocker morning. He mentioned that he mentions that either is we gotta get this comment, either way you go 8 or 9. I disagree with the schedule. I
Yeah.
disagree. I disagree with the schedule, but I think
No.
the schedule's too soft to go 8 and 9. But here's my thing: putting Jalen Monroe out there, you ruin. I think you could ruin the kid. I think you ruin any chance he has to have. What I was talking about was what he did. He made the wrong play call.
You
So
might
like,
or you might step up.
but I mean, in OTAs, there was a play action where he literally called the wrong play, and there was no running back to try to attempt to hand it off to, and the whole play was busted up. He's not. He needs time. I think that's a fine rookie mistake, but 4 games is not enough time to shape real progress. He needs a minimum of a year for
No, that's
his
what I'm
true
saying though. I'm
benchmark.
saying I'm saying after 4 games.
But
I'm
that's too
saying
soon.
after
That's too soon.
I just
He's
don't
not
see I just don't see any upside in playing Darnold because you're
not
either
having not having an abject disaster. It's not about ceiling. It's about
I'd rather
floor.
have an abject disaster so that you get a higher pick to pick from a good quarterback draft than
Not with
be
that
than
defense.
pick like 14 and you're stuck with the fifth best quarterback and now you're back to where you were before. There's no
Not.
upside.
Then you're just the Browns. Then you're just the Browns with a good defense who's in quarterback purgatory,
That's
and
not quarterback
you're
purgatory if you
wasting
go and get a
talent.
top quarterback. If you get Arch Manning, that's not quarterback purgatory anymore.
But you're not guaranteed to get one. Let's see how the quarterback class plays out because every year it's like
It's
almost
a great class.
it's a
For
much better
everybody
class.
saying it's a great class.
It's a much
Everyone is saying
better
it's a
class
great
for
class.
sure. But anyway,
Look, look, you talking about OTAs and Jalen Milroe. Remember how bad Trey Young was in summer league when he first got picked? Trey Young looked like he was a 14-year-old playing YMCA ball in the summer league, and
Trae Young, I wouldn't
everyone
use
was
that as
wondering, go research it. Everyone was wondering
I
why
wouldn't use that as an example of a guy that's the
because you're
Atlanta Hawks have done nothing.
no, but Trey Young has been an all-star, and Trey Young has been great. What I'm trying to say is your performance in OTAs or summer league is not going to be it's not indicative of what how you're going to play in the regular season. I don't care if Milroe makes a ton of mistakes in OTAs. What I care about is getting him is being able to, however we're going to do it, being able to evaluate what we have in Jalen Milroe so that we can make the right decision next year. This is a lost year. We ain't winning, you know what, this year. So
Well,
let's
I
do
mean,
everything we can to set ourselves up for the future. Playing Darnold and winning 8 games does nothing for me. What does it do for you if they win 8 games this year?
well, if they win 8 games, it's pretty disappointment on defense, especially again with that schedule. Because you're
Okay,
not
but
gonna.
what does it do moving forward, though, is what I'm asking you. Like,
What
how
you're
does
trying
that
to do is
help
see
us
what,
in
what
26,
offensive pieces you
27,
have.
20?
You're trying to see what offensive pieces to build around, what defensive pieces to build around, because this is a contract year for a lot of your young players on your defense. It's a very important year. You need some competent stick
So
to
if we
measure
know
that
what Darnold is, why are we playing Darnold and not someone else?
because I think you've got too good of a defense to just tank. I don't believe in tanking. I mean, I just don't. I
I
don't.
do.
I fundamentally don't believe in tanking, especially when you've got a lot of good pieces to build around, and you're talking about figuring out a couple of key positions, which is literally quarterback and wide receiver. I
I'm
don't think that's
wondering.
worth tanking the
Okay,
entire team.
let's get into the 53 for 2 seconds because I'm wondering how many of these are actually pieces on the offense when I look at this offense. I'm wondering how many of these guys actually are around when the Seahawks are competing for a division. Like
Well,
say
yeah,
next
that's a good question, but I think
let's
this
say
year is a
two
simpler
years,
way to figure it out.
let's say they're not that good this year, maybe squeaking in the playoffs, maybe don't. Let's say next year they could go either way next year, right? They could be a little better if they start Darnold as year 2, or if they bring in a new quarterback or a young quarterback, they're going to go down for a little while. In 2027, which is weird to say, but 2 years from now, how many of these guys are going to be a part of this offense?
It depends a lot on this year. I think this year determines it. I really do. If AJ Barner, your guy, takes a step forward the way you like him to, then
Who
he's on this team.
who are you teetering about then? Because I don't. There's not a lot of guys on this list that I'm like, I don't know, maybe not.
I would
Most of
say
these guys,
half
I'm like,
of the
yes, no,
offensive
no,
line. I would say half of the offensive line. I
sure.
think are intriguing prospects that, if they are developed properly, could easily give you some strong continuity and or depth.
Yep, I
I
agree
would
with you.
say in terms of your pass, I think your biggest question is wide receiver. I think the wide receiver room has the most
So
like JSN
JSN maybe right.
and Torrey
JSN,
Hood. I think in terms of your wide receiver room, which we just identified is a weak point of this team, and I think your quarterback. I think in terms of your tight ends, think in terms of your offensive line, you've got guys that could go either way, and this year is important to determine that. So to say that they don't
so
have anything to play for this year is,
I'm saying they do. I'm saying what you're playing for is you're evaluating what they're going to be down the road.
but you need a
I'm
floor
saying
for it.
there's nothing to play for from a result standpoint, from a win loss standpoint in 2025.
I think what would be great is to show that they can be a playoff caliber team.
The
I think I think
NFL Candace, teams vacillate from good to bad so easily in the NFL, right?
Yeah,
All the time. That slow build of like establishing the culture and winning 8 games, then winning 10 games, then winning 13 games is less existent in the NFL than it is in any professional sports league. Teams go back and forth all the time between being good and bad in the NFL because there's so much parity and because there's so few games, right? When you have 162 games like in baseball, talent wins out because there are too many games for it not to. When there's 17 games, it's different. I'm just saying, all I'm saying is that in my mind, this team isn't going anywhere. And if you're not going to win a Super Bowl with Sam Darnold, let's get to the place where we know who that quarterback is as quickly as we can. That's what I'm saying. And to
yeah.
answer the
I
question
just
about
think you need.
answer the
I think you need competent play. I just think you need. I think there is a such thing as
so
a.
we pick in the middle of the first round? Like, why? I'd rather have incompetent play so that we can pick higher next year.
Well, I do need competent play in order to evaluate the players you have on the active roster. You can't be so worried about getting the next
Some of
guy
them you
that
also see them in practice. You also have game film on a lot of these guys. Also, I don't know how many we're actually evaluating. I do think the offensive line is important to evaluate, and they're gonna function the same probably, whether it's Darnold or someone else. For one,
I don't think that's true.
I think it's completely true. Unless you have a quarterback that's back there standing for 9 seconds trying to look to where to
Which
pass the ball.
Jalen Milroe could literally be.
Okay,
Which
sure.
Jalen Milroe could literally
It's
be if
still
you
not.
throw him.
It's still not going to change how you evaluate those linemen, right? If the line gives up a sack in 5 6 seconds, that's not the line's fault. That's the quarterback's fault.
How hard was it to misconstrue the difference between the offensive line and Russell Wilson for years? Between how much of it was on the offensive line and how much of it was on Russell
I
Wilson.
don't think it was
There was
misconstrued at all.
ambiguity about that for years.
No,
Because it
I
was
think
really
everyone
hard.
knew Russell Wilson held on to the ball way too long.
I think it took years to get to that point where it was clear.
Not me. Not me.
I think it took years to get to that point. I think towards the latter half, I agree.
I think the line could have been better. I think they could have been smarter about like the James Carpenter pick and some of the other ways in which they tried to build the line. I think having the offensive line coach that they from the Raiders that Pete Carroll loved, that thought he could rebuild any old dude ball of clay into an all-pro lineman was a bad philosophy. But I also think Russell Wilson, we knew very quickly, I would scream at him, get rid of the ball all the time. As much as I loved him being able to spin out and run for 10 yards, half of those times I was yelling at him to get rid of the ball because you knew he was going to get sacked. You can evaluate line and line play very quickly, right? Very quickly. Because you have to pass block and run block regardless of who the quarterback is. Now, if you want to make the argument that, evaluating a Torrey Holton or an Elijah Arroyo is going to be difficult with Milroe versus Darnold, yeah, I think that's fine. But you can do a lot of that in practice too. It's not the difference between those two evaluations is not enough for me to pick 15th in a draft where there are a lot of good quarterbacks, right? A lot of potential elite quarterbacks. That's not enough incentive to me. And so I don't see when I look at this offense, if we get into this 53 man, like, okay, quarterbacks, right? Are we in agreement that it's Darnold, Lock, and Milroe on the
Yeah.
53? Okay.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I don't think Locke sees the field as long as Darnold is healthy. I think Milroe plays in some goal line and third down packages. I think we see it increase over the course of the year a bit to see what he's made of. I think they wait for a couple of games and they run a play action, bomb to someone just to place that in the coordinator's minds down the road. We've seen it play out like that before. Works for me. How many running backs do you have them keeping?
4.
Walker, Charbonnet, Martinez, and McIntosh?
Yep. Think they need 4 for injury as well as if they're really trying to run the ball more, then I think you gotta prioritize that, not just have 3.
I agree. If they carry 3, is it McIntosh or Martinez for you?
For me, I I I I guess Damian Martinez. I think you could probably sneak Kenny McIntosh probably on the practice squad or something. I don't think he's done enough to this point. I think he's a known commodity, and people might be less likely to go steal him. Trying to think of who you're able to sneak on
Right.
more realistically.
I also think that they, I think they know that Martinez could be a viable, kind of care like running like backfield share, but 65% for
Yeah,
running
he
the
could
ball
be
on
there.
first and second down, being an effective running back, being a average or slightly above average running back. That potential is very much there.
Yeah.
Whereas with McIntosh, his upside is a third down back who can return some kicks and be pretty explosive,
Mhm.
but not necessarily a back that can take on a big share of the carries. And what's more valuable to a Mike McDonald ran team? It's probably Martinez, right? The other
Yeah.
thing is Martinez has potential because we don't know what he is. We
Right.
kind of know what McIntosh is already. Um, I
And
think
to
I
some
agree.
extent, I
I think they're
agree.
keeping four. I think they're keeping four,
Yeah, I got 4.
especially as run focused as I think they want to be.
Hmm.
We can't be in the situation where we got Joe Schmo back there because Charbonnet and Walker are hurt
My
because
son lynching in off the couch.
for
Yeah,
real again.
yeah.
Fullback. What do you think they're going to do?
I think they go with Robbie
Boots.
Oots. It's Oots.
Mm-hmm.
Robbie Oots. I think they go with Robbie Oots. I think Brady Russell makes it an intriguing competition, but I ultimately feel like they could sneak Russell on the practice squad if they wanted to. Now, it's possible they keep him as a tight end. I've heard people speculate they might, just keep him on the roster, put him as a tight end because of how important he is to special teams.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably value in that, but I think if your offensive coordinator sees Robbie as the guy, they need to draft him with a 5th round pick.
Fifth
If
round.
he
Mhm.
doesn't beat out Brady Russell, honestly, I'll be kind of pissed off about it. Like
Right.
I
Right.
need for him to be good enough to beat Brady Russell. That's
Well,
that's
he's got,
my
not that Russell doesn't, but he's got that like there are some great fullbacks over history that just want to be a fullback. They don't want the ball. They don't need the ball. They just want to go run over a bunch of people in open holes.
mhm.
And that's what this guy sounds like.
Yeah,
And to me, there's some identity. They also want to establish an identity this year. And
right.
I think having that kind of like, slobbering, big, goofy fullback is helps to establish that identity. I also think that, especially Walker, but these backs could really function with better with the fullback. How many times do we see them getting hit in the backfield by someone penetrating? The idea of the fullback is that doesn't happen anymore, right? The fullback gets to that guy first. So
Right.
I see the same thing. I Russell would probably replace Sauerbert or for me as the fourth tight end if he makes the team. I don't I don't. That's a toss up for me. I have them putting Russell in the practice squad and keeping Sauerbert, but we'll see. So tight end, we can get to that. I have them keeping four: Fant, Arroyo, Barner, and Sauerbert. I
I
think
got
that
3.
I think we'll see a lot of multiple tight end looks this year. Which so you have them cutting Sauerbert then, I assume.
Hmm. I do.
I like the so if they don't keep him, now you only have one tight end that is a what I would consider to be a plus blocker. I know they've talked about Arroyo coming out as a decent blocker. I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it. I guess is the best way to put it. From what I saw, I didn't love him as a blocker. I think he's more of a you pick a tight end in the second round to be a receiver more so than a blocker. And I think they're going to want to have the type of offense that can really blow you off the ball. And if that's the case, having two primary blocking tight ends could help.
Yeah.
It worked out for me to keep him.
If you're right, I think they just keep Russell then. If they keep 4, I think they're more likely to keep Russell because I think they value again the special teams, which they kind of need to step up a little bit in that department. So I
Right.
think they see him as almost like a Nick Bellore of sorts for this new generation of team.
Right.
So my guess is if they go for tight ends, Russell's still on the team, but as a tight end, fullback, sort of they kind of use him as both
Man,
hybrid.
but Sauerbert's from Chicago though, man.
I like
I
the
like
entry. I mean, I don't know him well enough to feel passionate. You might be right. I mean,
he's
I like
31
the
he's
intrigue of a new
31
guy.
he's 31 years old. So what was the contract they
Wait,
signed him to?
Cyber is 31 years old.
Yeah.
Give me Brady Russell. I'm just kidding. I really didn't know anything about the guy.
Yeah, he's 31. Um,
Yeah,
I
give
don't
me
know.
Russell.
I don't know.
Give me
I
some continuity.
okay. I don't care
Um,
enough. I don't care enough. I would take the blocker if it was me, but it is what it is.
they got
How many receivers do you have them keeping?
I've got six. I've got them keeping six. JSN, Cooper Cup, MBS, Torrey Horton, and I got them keeping Jake Bobo and Ricky White the third. I think Derek Young could probably. I think they'll keep him around, but I think they could sneak him on the practice squad, and I don't see anything. I don't see a reason why they couldn't, or they might just
Mhm.
give up on him completely and just go with Ricky White. I mean,
Right.
it's important camp for him. If he wants to stick around, he does have to show something. I like Derek Young, but he's also never done anything to back up me liking him either.
It's interesting too. Like a lot of Ricky White, or I mean Derek Young, I see as a holdover from the Pete Carroll regime,
Hmm.
and he may have been a guy that they gave a year or two to see what they have.
Yeah,
And year two, they're not keeping you because we've kept you around. Year two, they're keeping you because you actually can play. I have them keeping five. I know that's not very many. Um, I would err on the side of White or Cody White if they did keep another. I know people have talked about Steve Sims as a kick returner. He is explosive as a kick returner. I don't know if you've got Horton and McIntosh. I don't know if you need to keep around another guy like that, but
yeah,
I have them keeping five. I could see a situation where it's no Sauerbert or Brady Russell. You keep three tight ends and a fullback, and then you keep a sixth receiver. And again, it's one of the Whites, and I would assume it'd be Ricky White because they picked him in the seventh, but he does have some talent, some pass catching talent. There is upside there.
yeah. I'll say I like the idea of keeping six because that's a position you're really hoping somebody steps. It's almost like throwing a dart at the board. You're really hoping somebody steps up. So I would say I would err on the side of keeping six just to see if you can develop somebody
Mhm.
over time and really
Sure.
get somebody to step up in that position. I think it's
White,
worth the
White,
spot.
Ricky White would be that guy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's my opinion. I think it's worth the spot of seeing if can you, and that's why I think Derek Young has to go because he's not proven enough at that point to be the upside guy
Right.
anymore.
I
So
would prefer that that's what they did and not kept four tight ends. I don't know if that's what they're actually going to do.
yeah,
All right, line.
yes,
Left tackle, I assume Charles Cross and Josh Jones.
yep. Wasn't Michael Jarrell they had at left tackle too, didn't they? I thought I
What's
saw
that?
something. Am I confusing that? I thought I saw Mike Jarrell. Am I mistaken? Am I mistaken that he was
I
getting
think
left
Jarrell
tackle?
Jarrell's backup will back up Lucas. I think.
Okay, I thought I saw something about him getting left tackle. Right? I could be making that up. Wasn't sure about that, but yeah. So yeah, and the Josh Jones guy really, I can't express how much I hate that signing, but
It's
we're
depth,
here.
right? It's
He's
a depth swing tackle.
he's.
It's your George Fant, if you will.
I like George Fan much better. It's
That's
my Lincoln Tomlinson.
that's why I said it.
I would have rather. I would have rather brought two games of George Fan.
That's
I don't know.
funny.
I see them as probably
You
anyway,
know,
but
it's if
it was
if
dumb
Josh,
signing.
he's Josh Jones is whatever. He's a dude that you sign that in a pinch.
I'd rather
If
have it.
if Charles Cross goes down, we're screwed anyways, right? It's kind of
I
what it
agree.
comes down to.
I agree.
So whatever. And then left guard, Gray Zabel
Yep.
ran with the ones at OTAs. He's entrenched there. I like that.
Yep.
Despite my criticisms, he's ours now. Like, let's support him. We'll see what we have. And then Satao
Yeah.
Laumea was backing him up at left guard. I like that a lot. I
Yep.
think if Laumea develops into a really good, so let's say third guard, that's a good thing, right?
Mhm.
And so having those two at left guard makes me I feel night and day different about left guard going into 2025 that I did in 24. 24 it was Lakin Tomlinson or bust basically. And now we've got a talented first round pick and a former 6th round pick that displayed quite a bit of talent last year, who's rough around the edges, but I think now has the time to develop behind Zabel and potentially become something. I'm happy at left guard. I think we're in a good spot.
I wouldn't say all that. I still wanted a vet guy, but I mean, compared to last year, obviously you have to feel better. I him being Lamea being a left guard is not going to be a game changer for me. I think it's a good move certainly, but I prefer experience. But anywho, I mean spilled milk at
He has
this point. It
experience. He
is
played
what it is.
last year. He played last year. He's got experience.
Nah, mm-mm. He didn't play well. He didn't even play average.
Hey,
But I
he
like. But to your point, I like some flashes. So he demonstrated flashes
he had a
that
couple of spectacular blocks. He just wasn't. He wasn't
flashes.
consistent. He
That
wasn't
is my
consistent.
point.
Hmm
I want a I
That
want
comes with
a
time.
floor. I want another guy. But it's spilled milk now at this point. I think for what you have, it's a good move on their part.
But
And
another guy would be a Lakin Tomlinson, right?
uh, uh, you know what? I was fine with Lincoln as a backup. Actually, I was fine with him as a backup. It was the fact that they were going to start him that was my problem. That was my biggest problem.
See, we disagree again. For me, if you have a backup, you might as well give me the young guy that has some upside. I don't need the old dude.
I think
Because
offensive line.
you're gonna have a whole team of 34-year-olds that are gonna be out there with the trying to experience their way to a 10-win season.
No, no, no. I like my third string in terms of offensive line and what you need in today's league. I like the third string being the guy who's shown flashes but isn't ready yet. I like a backup because essentially I think offensive linemen, at least on the Seahawks, get injured as much as running backs do. So I
Mhm.
kind of need your backup to be starter quality, like could start in a pinch guy, because I think that's kind of what happens in the 17 game season. So that's why my take on it's a little different. I just view the position
I
a
think
little
you can
differently from a
have.
history perspective.
I think if you have two backup tackles, I think you can have one of each. That's what they have, right? If it's Jones and Jarrell, you got one guy that has some experience, be it okay experience. You got one guy who's super developmental, and I think that is a good way to go. I agree. I don't know if it's just isolated to the one like left guard position. I think you can take guards in a bucket. You can take tackles in a bucket. Not saying that every left tackle can play right and every right can play left, but if you have the right type of guys, the right mix, you can function that way, right? Who do you have at center?
Olu and Sundale.
Do you think
Which I
do you think
think
Olin starts?
I think Olu starts. I think he was solid. I mean, he wasn't a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got another off season. His biggest thing was play strength.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's something that you can improve on in an
Mm-hmm.
off season. So hopefully it works for him. I think they're going to give him every opportunity. I think they like Sundale. I like Sundale. I like his upside.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in center, I don't. Yeah, I think there's just a floor there anyway. Like there's a ceiling, right, in terms of what a center is going to do for you.
Mm-hmm.
You need a guy that doesn't make mistakes and that's smart at the line. I
So,
was under the understanding though that Kubiak wanted an elite type of center. They don't have that, so I'm
mhm.
curious as to the
Well,
ramifications of that.
funny you say that because I read that Christian Haynes took a couple of snaps at center
I did see that.
during OTAs, and I think that's interesting that they would do that. I also, let's say as an example, let's say Haynes is actually decent, and one of Laumea or Cabeldu like actually becomes average. What if Zabel? What if Zabel became your center? Right? Zabel played center. Zabel was looked at as a center by some teams coming out. I'm just saying, like I could see a situation where there's enough mix and match, especially if Haynes took some snaps, where one of Haynes or Zabel becomes your center, and then you have guards, young guards that establish themselves enough to become the guards on this team. I don't think that'll happen necessarily this year, but I could see a situation down the road. And I did find it very interesting that they had Haynes taking snaps at center. He's
Yeah,
athletic to get to the second level, which is kind of cool.
I'm with you. I like it more for a prospect of next year, not this year, but certainly I'm open to that possibility for sure. Yeah, I'm with you.
Right guard. This is where this is the first time I kind of went off the board at right guard.
Okay.
So I have Haynes and Bryce Cabeldu. They're sixth round pick out of Kansas, and I have them getting rid of Anthony Bradford. Bradford's dead cap hit for this year be $400,000. Um, I don't know. I know that they want to run the ball more. I know that's his strength, but I do wonder, especially if Haynes steps up, if they just decide they want the chemistry of Haynes and Zabel, playing together, and that's going to be their guard tandem moving forward. And Bradford is, I don't know. I get the feeling that they like Cabeldu a lot. I heard there were a lot of good comments about him at rookie camp. We know Laumea is there for sure. Where does that leave Bradford? I don't know that he's on this team. I'm projecting him to get cut.
Um, you know what's crazy enough? I actually really love Bradford as a second string.
Of
Like
course
if
you
he's
do.
not starting for you,
Of course you do.
yeah, I really love him as a second string. I really do. He's got the experience, right? And he's got a lot of experience. I think he's got upside. The guy is just he gets too many penalties. He's not somebody you can rely on consistently. And so for a guy who's got starter upside that you just can't depend on consistently, give me him as a second string guy. Give me
I,
him all
I
day.
think the most likely scenario is they keep Haynes and Bradford at right guard. They compete. Whoever plays best starts, and they try to put Cabaldou on the practice squad. And they either get lucky and keep him there, or he gets picked up by somebody else. I could see that. That's the most likely scenario. If it's me, again, I'm skewing young and I'm trying to see what I have. Um, and I do think Haynes comes back a different player this year. Honestly,
Yeah,
I,
I
I
do.
think I think he comes back and starts to show why he was a third round pick. If that's the case, he's starting at right guard. Right tackle, I assume it's Lucas and Jarrell. There's not
I
a
got
whole lot
that.
of.
I think they keep all these guys. I think they do. I think they pull
You
like
think
they
they
did
keep
last year
11?
and keep Cabaldou, keep
So 11.
Bradford, keep. Yep. Wait up. I got. Hold up. In
You
terms of
know,
experience.
if it was your weak spot, if it was your weak spot, and and you're trying to get better and you're trying to improve that line, why not? I would keep more numbers there if that's the spot that you feel like you need it the most.
I've got
It
12 because
wouldn't
I
bother
got
me
them
one
keeping.
bit.
Got them
Who's the
keeping
12th?
Richmond.
Who?
I got them keeping Richmond too. I got 12.
Mitch?
Yep.
Mitch
No,
Richmond?
Richmond, Mason, Richmond. I
Mitch
got them
Richmond.
keeping everybody. I got them keeping all of they. That's kind of what they did last year, and they surprised everybody. And they kept. I mean, they hoarded pretty much every promising offensive lineman and actual
Mhm.
offensive lineman. That's what they did last year. I've got them following that same script because I think that's a Mike McDonald thing. I think he wants to develop talent
I'd
at
love
that.
it. I'd love it. I'd love it.
Yeah,
Um, all right, defense. Interior line.
you know, Leonard, Jan Reed. My guess is Riley Mills goes on pup, so that's kind of what allows me to get the extra offensive lineman in. I think that they put him on the pup list, but I don't know if that's the case. But I got him making the roster, but not counting against.
So
And
I
then
had. Go
yeah,
ahead.
and I've got them keeping Jared Ivey. Actually,
Huh. So I guess I grouped them a little different. I've got just basically the D line and then edges.
oh, okay,
D line, I've got Williams, Byron Murphy, Jaron Reed, Riley Mills. But like you said, it wouldn't surprise me if they put him on
pup.
the pup list.
Yeah,
Mike Morris, I still think there's something there, and I see them signing someone who gets cut and keeping six, like
I didn't think it
kind
was.
of scouring the waiver wire once players get cut, trying to see who's out there, signing some sort of veteran, something like that, because I think they're going to want to carry six. Um, and like you said, I could see Mills not being on the pup list, and then they're signing two,
Yeah,
but I think that's a place where they're going to look for someone else. Did I
I
not
like.
include Hankins?
Yeah, Hankins, and I got Quentin Boana
Okay, no, I
coming
like
up.
Quentin. I like the upside of Quentin Bolano for sure.
Fun fact: he's from Memphis. Went to the
Is he
high
really?
school literally 3 years from me. Yeah, three
Oh,
minutes.
nice.
He went to
That's
Cordova
fun.
High School, which is down the road. So I'm kind of rooting for the guy. Plus,
Yeah, for
I think they
sure.
need a big dude. I mean, Hankins, if you're gonna keep him, he's limited in his snaps, and even though snaps weren't
He's a
so
pure
great,
nose, right? He's just a pure nose. You
yeah,
want him to take up two blockers and just stand there and be strong and let everybody else do their thing.
but he can't
They,
do that often.
if they lose him, they don't have anybody else to do it either.
Yeah,
They're trying to put Murphy in that role, and Murphy's not. That's not his best place.
yep,
I'd love them
yeah.
to go sign a big, just goofy nose guard to back him
Just get
up.
a dude. What's Al
Yeah,
Woods doing? What's Al
hey,
Woods? Is he in shape? Al
or
Woods, he
who
doing all
was
right?
the Pacific Islander dude they always had from Michigan?
Oh, I
Who
know
was
who you're talking about. Oh, Mike Apati? Is
No,
that who you're
Michael
talking about?
Potty was a lot of offensive lineman. I'm talking about the
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
defensive lineman. Brian, it'll come to me. But that's somebody like that.
I
Like
think I
I'd love
know
to
it.
have another 340 pound, dude in the
Just give
middle.
me a, just give me a guy. Just give me a dude.
Um, what about edge? They keep him 5.
I've got four. I've just got Boye, Chenna. I don't see. I'm sure that may now if a guy comes up and he shows himself strong, in camp, I'm cool with it. Like no
Hmm.
argument with me there for sure. But
Hmm.
I'm not high on the depth behind Boye, Derek, Uchenna, and Demarcus Lawrence. After that, to me, it's just some dudes.
Hmm.
So,
I
but
agree
yeah,
that
I'm
there's
not gonna
some
trade with
dudes. I have them keeping 5. People always love Tyreek Smith just because he's a big body and he's athletic, but he hasn't done anything really.
him. No,
I love Jamie Sheriff, but I don't think he's. I don't know that he'll stick
they
um,
moved him inside.
for good or just as an experiment.
Who knows? I mean, he's been getting reps primarily. They haven't been playing him at edge. He's been getting
I,
reps at inside
I love
linebacker.
him. I love him, but I don't think he makes it.
Yeah,
I
no,
have them keeping 5 and keeping Smith. I think five's the right number to me because I would love if they had like a really developmental, athletic dude as that 5th guy because those 4 are obviously going to rotate through, right?
yeah.
So if one gets hurt and you're still trying to go 4, you don't really have that. You're going to have a weak link going in there as the 4th guy. Tyreek Smith just isn't good to me, but I have them keeping 5 for now. What about off ball linebacker?
We need some help. We need to make some phone calls. We need. I got three. I mean, I got Ernest Jones, Therese Knight, and I just put Josh Ross
Mhm.
there. But they need to find somebody.
I
They
like
have
Drake. You don't like Drake Thomas? I
no.
don't think Drake Thomas is bad. I think Drake Thomas had some good plays last year. I just honestly, if it gets down to not having Jones and Knight, I want someone who's gonna make the plays they should make. I don't need anything other than just don't get burnt by the back, don't get blown out of a hole, right? You're not going to be as explosive as the other two, but don't make mistakes. Really, play assignment football. Um,
Maybe
I
it's I don't get it with him. Maybe that's it. Like I'm just not a. I'd rather he's a guy that's like has been around, but he's kind of like a Derrick Young to me. You
right.
know,
I don't.
he's been
Hey,
around.
look,
I don't get it.
I don't love it, but that's what they have, and I think they keep 4.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think they could go with 3 because how often do you have both off-ball linebackers in the game, especially with Eamon Worry, right? I
Right.
think Eamon Worry changes the calculus a little bit too.
Yep.
So you may not need 4. You may only need 3 with Eamon Worry playing in that role sometimes. But I'm super comfortable and happy with Jones and Knight. I think that Jones and Knight together is a strength. Can you imagine though what this defense would feel like if Jones signed somewhere else? I think it changed the whole complexion of the season if Jones signed somewhere else.
I agree.
Personally, I think
I
he
agree.
was super important to re-sign. He
Agreed.
became kind of the heart and soul of that defense. Him and Witherspoon. They were the heartbeat.
That was my thought that he became a glue guy. He
And it
became
was
he
clear
became the
from
guy that put the defense together.
look, game 1 that he played, it was clear,
Yep.
which I love. I think it gave the defense an identity. I think it shored up. We had a great line play and we had a great secondary, but we didn't know about the linebackers, and he changed that. He made all 3 levels great by immediately. Um, yeah, I don't 3, 4, whatever. If Jones, Knight plus Thomas and Ross, or one of Thomas and Ross is fine with me. Hopefully, those guys don't see the field much and they can play special teams.
Mhm.
Corner, how many do you have them keeping?
I've got them keeping four because I think you need four.
Mhm.
But if it was just three, it'd be fine with me. I've got a Shamar Jean Charles, making it.
Practice
He may
squad.
or may not. And he may or may not. I think they should have another guy. I'm out on Nehemiah Pritchett. I'm all the way out.
Really?
Consider me
Huh.
long ago. I was never big on him. Every time I see the man, he getting blown by. Every time I see him, somebody is beating him on a route. All he does is give wide receiver separation. I
They're
have
going
been out on Nehemiah Pritchett. I would have rather kept DJ James. I'll be honest. I mean,
they're going to keep him because he's athletic though, and they're going to hope that he's developed this year. I'm just saying they're going to keep him. I have
I
him
don't
keeping.
see it.
I don't think you can keep any less than 4. I have him keeping 4 and signing someone before the season starts.
So 5.
I got Spoon, Woolen, Job, and Pritchett, and I think they sign one other guy to make it 5.
Ew.
Uh,
Pritchett is
look, he's
Pritchett is the jock who got by
he's
because he had
he's
measurements.
he's incredibly athletic. If they can teach him a little bit, he could be serviceable as that fourth corner.
No, I don't think so. I don't think his athleticism is enough to save him. I don't think it shows up on the
Your
field.
team bring in the 34-year-old backup over here.
No, no, just Shamar Jean. Give me somebody else. Give me another developmental guy
He is
with a different.
developmental.
I
He's
think
got great athletic traits to develop.
on in the combine, he's a workout warrior. I ain't seen it on the field. Haven't seen it on the field at all. Haven't seen a single
He
play
probably
in training camp.
honestly, he probably shouldn't have seen the field last year if he was going to develop as a fifth round pick. He wasn't ready, I think, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be good this year.
I didn't like him in
Just
training
he
camp.
wasn't ready. He wasn't ready.
He didn't show flashes in training camp. The man's not.
Okay, we'll
He's
see.
a workout. He's a workout warrior to me.
I don't love him, but as your fourth corner with those kinds of traits, I'm not. That's fine with me. I'm not.
Normally, I'm with you. I need a little bit more than just I need to know the traits mean something. And I think we have an athletic defense, a athletic team, really. I don't think his athleticism is just a game changer when you got a team of athletes. Like it's not the difference maker to me. If we were low on athletic guys, if we didn't have, Nick Emenwari, then maybe.
I think you
But
want
we got athletic freaks.
as many as possible.
I want good ones. Give me another one. I'm out.
Okay. All right.
All right. Um,
Can't wait. I can't wait till he's starting like week 3 because Woolen got benched and Pritchett's out there balling out.
he's not gonna be balling. He's gonna. I assure you, the wide receiver will be. It'll be touchdowns galore. That's what you're gonna see.
They're gonna nickname him Toast. It's
Yeah,
gonna be
even in
Nehemiah Toast Pritchett.
the training video, the OTA video they posted of JSN Sam Darnold on that bad throw that he had to catch on the outside. It was Nehemiah Pritchett just getting burnt. Always just getting killed every time I see the guy. It's insane.
Oh boy! All right, safety. How many?
Uh, what'd you do there? I got them keeping Ty Okada. They seem to like him, but I like Jared Reed more.
You like the mascot dudes, man?
I like
No,
who?
the mascot dudes. They ain't keeping no Ty Okada. Ty Okada's done.
Ty Okada. They kept him. The reason I put them is because they can't seem to leave him
But
alone every time I turn around.
they signed D'Anthony Bell. Jarek Reed has a lot of talent. He was just
I
hurt
love
last year.
I like
I think they keep 5. I think it's Love, Bryant, Emenwari, Jarek Reed, and D'Anthony Bell. And I think they find places to play Bryant, Emenwari, and Reed that are less conventional. I think when you keep Emenwari, he's potentially a big slot if you want to put him there once in a while.
yeah.
He's going to cover running backs a lot. He's going to cover tight ends a lot. He could even rush off the edge a bit. So keeping Emenwari doesn't mean you're keeping 5 true safeties, right? We know Kobe Bryant has played corner. Doesn't mean we want him to, but he has played corner. And Jarek Reed has the ability to move around a little bit. So to me, I think that, keeping 5 doesn't mean you have 5 true safeties. It means you have guys that you can move around like chess pieces a bit. But I think all 5 of those guys are worthy of making the 53 and will be contributors.
I think that's fair. Oh yeah, I think that's fair. I like Jarek Reed a lot. It was kind of hard to put Ty Okada. My sense was this, and maybe I'm wrong. My sense was that Ty Okada was more of a Mike McDonald project, and that Jarek Reed would have been more of a holdover for a project of a Pete Carroll. And I don't know how that'll end up shaking out. I like Jarek Reed a lot, and I just know nobody talked about him after the injury, that sort of thing. Obviously he was coming off injury, so I just didn't know if his time had passed
Mm-hmm.
with this regime. But my hope is that Reed can make the roster because I like him a lot, really
Mm-hmm.
do, really high on Jarek Reed. I just didn't know if the coaching staff was. Yeah,
They're not keeping Ty Okada. Sorry.
I mean I'm cool with it. They seem to like the guy. I mean, they cut him like what 5
Man,
times last year.
he got practice squad written all over him, okay?
They brought him up often. Like they played the guy.
I
They played
love
him in
this squad,
games.
Okada. Ty
I'm telling
Bradley.
you, I agree with you. He seems like a pet project of Mike McDonald.
Um,
Him, and if they keep,
hey, make your pet project Nick Imanwari. We don't need to be making Ty Okada our pet projects,
I'm just
okay?
telling you what it was last year.
Spend
I
your
was
time
surprised they
coaching.
brought him back.
Spend your time coaching Imanwari, man. Hey, spend your time coaching Nehemiah Pritchett. See, stop messing with Ty
No,
Okada. For real. At least Pritchett got some of the traits that you want. Okada's just
I agree with you, but it would not surprise me if Okada finds his way because he's like a roach. He never, every time they cut him, they just bring him on right back. I don't know why they bother to cut him anymore.
called him a roach.
He won't go away. They like the dude, man.
Can't kill him.
They like the dude. Like every time they cut him, they bring him back. It's crazy.
That's ridiculous.
That's what happened. They cut him like 5 times last year.
That's funny. And then to round it out, they got Jason Myers, Michael Dixon, and whoever the long snapper
Crystal,
ends up being, Nick Stoll,
Crystal,
but
yeah.
whatever. Um, not trying to pay attention to that. So interesting. We have pretty much the same. I like the idea of keeping an 11th lineman, offensive lineman. I'm with that. Uh, I think we're in agreement that Torrey Horton could play some sort of role with this team eventually.
Hopefully.
We both want to see what Ricky White III has. We're both in on Robbie Oots and Damian Martinez.
Yep.
And then defensively, I don't think we had this team feels pretty set.
Yeah, the defense is. I think the defense is. You're just talking about who you want to develop. You know what I mean? Like what
Mhm.
guys you want to bring on.
Right.
Which is why I'm bigger on throwing a few more shots at your offense, which you've got a lot more room to grow with. Keep the
Mhm.
guys who you can trust and develop guys on the practice squad. In my opinion,
You can trust them to be 8 and 9, and that don't mean nothing to me.
I'm much higher on this thing. I'm hoping if we can just get competent play. I think all you need is competent quarterback play in order to win 10 games. Honestly, like that's bare minimum. If you just have not abject disaster at the quarterback position, then you're good. Now, I do think at some point they'll need to make a trade for wide receiver. I think.
I
What's
was gonna
Christian
ask you
Watson doing? What's he doing?
who.
What's Christian Watson doing? I don't know. What's he got going
Uh,
on? I don't
uh,
know. I'll
what
take a like. It don't got to be a star. I just think they need another guy.
you need a burner.
Yeah, yeah.
What position, we can end it with this? What position do you have on each side of the ball are you most worried about?
I think that's pretty obvious. Wide receiver.
So it's not
Wide
offensive line
receiver.
anymore.
Not anymore.
Okay.
Actually, not anymore. Not because the offensive line was so great, but just because the I'm just worried about this. Maybe I'm putting too much stock in the OTAs, but I could just see the wide receivers being a bigger
Horrible.
problem. Yeah,
Slow.
being a bigger problem than what anticipated. And I think you've got, even though it's a ton of young guys and it's not going to be what I wanted to, I just don't think there's anything you can do for the offensive line. I do think you can upgrade the wide receiver position. Nobody's giving away a good offensive lineman. Like from
Right.
here on out, you
Right.
have what you have, and you just got to hope guys develop because that's how the market is.
Yep.
So I say wide receiver because you can do something to improve that. And on
They're
defense,
they're temperamental. You could have a wide receiver all of a sudden they want out. Say they want out. The Seahawks be ready to pounce. Be
yeah,
week 3 and they don't want him anymore. Or Stephon Diggs gets cut for his little video he
pink
had.
powder.
Yeah, and then the Seahawks pick him up. You never know. Like the wide receivers are like that.
Mhm.
Christian
No,
Kirk got traded, right? Like kind of surprisingly, and he was a highly productive receiver. Um, I was just imagining. I'm actually really excited about this line. I like Jason Hoff. Shout out. I like Cabaldoo. Cabaldoo looks good, and I know I called him Cabal don't, but
you
I
did.
think he's a real prospect, right? I think Christian Haynes, if he has any pride at all, he's going to come back a different player. Because he was embarrassed as to how he played. I love Laumea. You already know that. I'm on record. I think Laumea can be a player, and Zabel. It wasn't my favorite draft pick of who they could have taken, but I still think he's going to be a very productive guard, and that's what they needed, right? He may not be the guy that I wanted, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be good. I still think Charles Cross is immensely talented. We'll get our standard 4 games out of Abe Lucas, and then we'll just see what Mike Jarrell has. Am I wrong?
You're wrong, but no, I'll say this. I think I can see the upside with the offensive line, and I think they've got some very intriguing. I think I'm most excited about the depth.
Mm-hmm.
Still wish we had a little bit more of a proven commodity because it could also all fall apart. Like all these guys can end up being nobody. But I I see the upside there, and I think there's a lot to be excited about. And I like that they're accumulating talent at that position and
Mm-hmm.
genuinely trying to develop these guys. So I'll give them credit for that. I think it's higher risk, but also
Mm-hmm.
I think there's higher reward in terms of having these guys work together and get better for sure.
I will say too about the offense. I'm not going to be excited about this offense until Sam Darnold is no longer the quarterback.
I think
I
I
just,
agree with you.
I just don't. I can't. I'm going to watch because I'm a Seahawks fan. I'm going to watch because I care.
Yep.
But I'm not really truly going to be excited, like own this team until Darnold isn't the quarterback anymore. And it could be Milrow, it could be someone in the draft next year, whatever it might be. Like, I want to see the dude of the future. And I get that he's a bridge to it, but I hope he makes me eat my words. I hope he's great. I just don't think that's going to be the case. The other player I will say, and I love rookies. I've always been that way ever since I was a kid. But I am excited to see Damian Martinez too and see what he can do because he's a different size back, right? He runs with a little different power. He's not a pure power back either, right? He's balanced enough.
Mhm.
I could see him being a bell cow. I could see him being a first and second down runner for the next couple of years in a way that he wouldn't be as explosive as Walker, right? He's not going to bust, huge runs, but he'll get what's there. And I think in an offense like this, where you're trying to just churn out first downs, that's what you need. You need a running back who's going to get what the offensive line gives them and might get a little more sometimes, but it's not going to dance and is not going to lose yards. So I'm excited for that. I don't know. I am excited for the weird parts of the offense. I'm excited for the line. I'm excited for the tight end room. I think I'm excited to see Arroyo. Again, he wasn't my favorite pick either, but Arroyo and Barner together seems like fun to me, right? I'm
Yeah,
excited to see Robbie Oots blow up, some linebackers in the hole, but I'm not excited for the wide receiver room outside of Horton. I'm certainly not excited for the quarterback room outside of Milrow. And I don't know. It's weird when you don't have receivers you like and you don't have quarterbacks that you like. It's not always fun to root for your team.
can I be? What's crazy is if this won't really happen, but if Drew Lock were to have beat out Sam Darnold in camp,
Mhm.
I would actually be more excited about his ability to do that,
It'd
and
be more interesting. It'd be
I'd be
more interesting.
more on board. Yes, I would be more on board with a Drew Lock having a Geno Smith career arc
Yeah.
than
It'd
Sam.
be honestly, it'd be fun, right? I
Yeah,
think
it'd be
like
fun.
it's
Yeah,
also
if that
weird that
happened.
your quarterback isn't the this is the first time in years where since before Russell Wilson, where our quarterback wasn't a shit before Hassel, even before Hasselback, where your quarterback wasn't, the demonstrative leader of the team,
Yeah,
right? Whether you liked Russell or not, Russell was the leader, was the face.
yep,
Gino certainly was the leader, right? So was Hasselback. And
yep.
so, so was Dilfer for that matter. You got to go way back to find a quarterback for this team that wasn't, outgoing big leader. And I find that very, very interesting that, I don't see Darnold that way. He might indeed be that way, but that's not what I've seen so far. And so it's interesting to have a quarterback that is that way. I do think we'll start to see, this is speculating, but the fact that Darnold is kind of quiet in the way that he is, and Milrow is such a big personality and such a leader, and he's so magnetic. I think that I wonder how that will play out with this team. Because if players start to get behind the athleticism and the leadership qualities and the communication from Milrow, does that change how they treat or how they think about Darnold at all?
I think it would
No.
take Milrow a lot of growth and practice to get there,
Absolutely.
but it would certainly be a positive development. He's got to stop doing things like calling the wrong place. But
And it's OTAs, man. He's a rookie in his OTAs.
I think that's still not something you see often. That's just not. It's just
You see it. You do see it sometimes. You absolutely see it
sometimes,
sometimes.
but not in not with your starter quality
Okay.
guy.
Here's the thing, though. Maybe he calls the wrong play, but he's got so much athleticism and so much running ability. Maybe he turns it into a 10-yard game.
I think that's what he did on that play. It was actually a well,
Exactly.
no, a Wario dropped the ball. It was a good play. Like it was like the 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 upside and the downside, like all in one play. It's why it was
Give
why
me
it was
that dude.
brought up.
Give me that
But
dude.
no, I'm strongly against taking a developmental guy and then not making him developmental. I hate when teams do that. I hate taking an Anthony Richardson, knowing he had minimal college experience, and then throwing him and making him the day
But
one
they said that
starter,
was
and
some of
then
that
being
was
like, "Oh, he's a bust."
well,
Like
some of it was work habits and attitude, though, right?
but
That was
he
work.
was never ready for that position anyway.
No, I
The fact
agree.
that he was actually known as the opposite coming out of like the draft, but he was thrown into a position he wasn't ready for, and
No,
now we're
to-
hearing about
I totally agree. Like, this is going back a ways, but Steve McNair sat for a long time, right? Patrick Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith. I think there is quite a bit of
Jordan Love.
value. What's that?
Jordan Love.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers, right? There's quite a bit of value in, not that I like Aaron Rodgers, but
Yeah.
there's quite a bit of value in having a quarterback sit and learn. And I think there is, for someone like Milrow, I do think that's important. I don't want, and I think you're right. If he was to start this year, I think that you would see his development would be damaged
Mhm.
potentially in a lot. I think that betting man would say his development, they would bet on his development being damaged versus not. If you're going to try to set him up to succeed, he's not starting this year. My point about tanking is just that maybe you start Lock instead. I don't know, but
Yeah, maybe it's a block.
I just
I'm
don't.
cool with that.
I just don't think Darnold is that dude.
I'm cool with
Um,
saying block. Actually, I'm fine. I'm
right?
not worried about his development. So yeah, actually,
real
yeah, we're taking. Give me that one.
real quick, defensively, what's the position you're most concerned about?
Uh, Most concerned about. Also, I have two. It's got to be inside linebacker, just because I just don't think. I think if anybody gets hurt, we're screwed. Um, but underrated. I'm worried about our pass rush. Underrated. No one's talking about it. Worried about our pass rush not being enough. Um, we'll see if that proves to matter or not.
Mhm.
But just not sure you're getting enough from Boye and Mafe, from Derek Hall. Think you really need one of those guys to step up, and neither of them have. And
Mafe did at the beginning of last year. He did.
but then he feels. I mean, the problem is consistency when you're talking about taking the next
Sure,
step, right? How you do it and how often you can do well.
sure.
So they think they're both showing flashes, but I think you've got a ton of B guys, and Demarcus Lawrence isn't a you can't count on him to get you double. I mean, he's not that guy anymore. He's a great run stopper, but
Mhm.
he's not that guy. So just feeling like we'll see that maybe show up sometimes in certain
Right.
games against
Well,
maybe.
it's interesting because on the line, if you're counting the edges as well, the only player you can really point to and say is elite is Leonard Williams,
Right.
right? We know Murphy has elite upside,
Mhm.
but we don't. He hasn't been elite yet. Lawrence is on the backside of being elite, and Mafe and Hall have shown flashes, but they're not. I don't. You can't call them that yet, right?
Yeah.
Here's a low key concern for me. I don't like how they've mixed the defensive line. I hate Murphy as the
Yeah.
nose guard. I
Hmm.
hate it. I hate it. Like that's not. And I get that Mike McDonald is a defensive genius, right? And I'm not trying to say he's wrong, flat out. But you drafted a twitchy, quick 3 tech, 5 tech if he has to be, right? But 3 tech, like prototypical 3 tech, to be a pass rusher, to get upfield, to penetrate, to cause havoc, right? This is a kid who you could see getting double digit sacks year one if he was put in that situation where they just said, "Hey, we just want you to get into the backfield and we want you to you know cause chaos." And then they put him at nose guard to occupy blockers. And he may indeed be good at that, but you don't spend the 14th pick in the draft on a nose guard unless his name is Vita Vea, you know?
To your
Honestly,
to your
honestly,
point,
or a Tavondre Sweat, right? That and he's not either of those guys because his body's not that way. The other thing is he's going to get tore up physically if he's taking on guards and centers, two at a time over
yeah,
the course of the season. It's a misutilization of resources as far as I'm concerned to have him there. Now, if he's playing, if you have Hankins in the middle and you're rotating Reed and Murphy and Williams in base, right? Three guys for two positions, and then when you go to, you're rushing, or you've got four down linemen, say, for, in pass coverage, and then you put Murphy in the middle with Reed, something like that, or Murphy in the middle with Williams. I get that. That's to me utilizing your strengths. But him in the middle at nose guard is I'm confused. I'm confused. And so if they continue to do that outside of Leonard Williams, who's getting penetration? Who's your lineman that's going to be great? Leonard Williams played out of his mind last year,
right,
right? He's never played at that level. What happens if he falls off a little bit? He's not young.
right. And I think it's to be expected. I don't think people can expect him to do what he did last
Mm-mm.
season. I think you have to anticipate regression. So I completely
Absolutely.
agree with your point. And to your point, Byron Murphy was actually seventh in win rate.
Hmm.
Pass run win rate. He was seventh. So it's crazy because he showed the promise,
Hmm.
but just wasn't given the opportunities. I understand because of Leonard Williams, but I agree with you in the sense of even if they went back to Jan Reed was a really good. His best year was at nose.
Yep.
In recent years.
Undersized, but yeah, he played
Yep.
well at nose.
I'd rather run him at nose, primarily to give that upside and have a tandem of Byron Murphy and Leonard Williams, Jaron Reed at nose, who actually he from a pass rush perspective, he seemed better
Hmm.
at nose
Hmm.
than at three tech,
Yep.
frankly. And so then I think that's a better utilization. If you're just not gonna go and if you're not gonna go get the 330, you know,
Right.
if you're not gonna get that guy, then cool, then go with it. But I'd rather not stunt the growth
Right.
of the top pick. I agree
It's
with you.
I don't know. It's going to be very interesting for me to see. I hear you on off ball linebacker. I just don't think I don't I think you can go from having two good ones to one good one and still be good, right? If it's if it, whether it's Drake Thomas playing a little bit and Eamon Wari playing a defense where Eamon Wari can play a lot more. You play like three safeties sort of thing. I'm not as worried. I do think that if Ernest Jones gets hurt, this defense is gonna change a lot. He's one player outside of Witherspoon. He's probably the one player on this defense I think they can afford the least to get injured and be out for a while. Um,
That's what I mean. I just
mhm.
don't think that's a sustainable formula. I think you need, even if you had another player the likes of a Tyrese Knight, I think you need that with a position that's so important that's basically the linchpin of the entire defense.
Mhm.
I just think you need a little bit more depth there. I don't think if your whole defense is hinged on this position, you need to invest more in it, in my
Right. I,
opinion.
I'm glad we have Knight. I like Knight, but Knight is better next to Jones than he would be on his own.
Correct. Agreed. And then from there, you considering then the downgrade from Knight to what you have on your roster, it's just too big of a drop off. You need at least two players the likes of Knight and
So I'd be
Chase Young.
so tempted to play Eamon Wari there full time just to see what happened.
Well,
If
at
that
that point, I would agree with you, but it's just not the situation you want to be in.
No, not at all, not at
Yeah,
all. It's
but I
interesting.
agree with
It's overall as a team, I'm not excited, but I am very excited for some individual players and positions. I still think this year is very much a developmental year and a teaching year. It's scouting to see what you have. It's trying to see if you can help players progress. Um, it's interesting though that we were so, you know, focused on the offensive line for the last year and a half, and now we're both kind of saying, okay, looking at these names, I think we might be okay eventually. It's kind of cool to feel that way, you know.
I'm not there with you, but I'm more worried about the wide receivers. I'm not there that we might be okay. I don't know if we will. It's still a big question mark for me. But
It's a
now
question,
I
but
just
there's
have a
potential.
bigger question mark.
There's potential though.
There's
It's not
potential.
immediately going to Mike Jarrell, right? It's not immediately going to Jake Curhan or Stone Forsythe.
Yes,
Like
that is very
we
true.
knew those dudes were trash. We just knew, right? It wasn't like, ooh, let me see what Curhan has. Maybe that dude's gonna be okay. It was we're done, right? Stick
Yep,
a fork in us. We are done. Those dudes are trash. I don't know why they're on the roster. I don't feel that way about Jarrell. I don't feel that way about Cavaldu. I don't feel that way about Laumea. You know what I
true.
mean?
That's
I
true.
feel like, okay, like these guys might get some holding penalties and whatnot, and they might get blown by a couple times, but they also might blow open a hole, for a big touchdown in Atlanta, the way Laumea did with Jarrell. So I don't know. It's like I said, if you don't have a quarterback you're excited about or a wide receiver you're excited about, it's not all that much fun. Um, you
Yep.
know, Following Michigan last year with Davis Warren as our quarterback sucked because I knew he wasn't good. Following it with Bryce Underwood this year, the number one recruit in the nation, as a true freshman, is going to be a blast. And we may not be as good of a team, but it's going to be more fun because we had the number one recruit as our starting quarterback, right?
Yeah.
And I think I feel the same way about our the Seahawks quarterback room as well.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. We'll see. We'll see how things play out. But I was just gonna make the joke that I think everybody on the offensive line gets an additional 5 points on PFF just by not having Stone Forsythe. Like it's just default, like the math. Everybody gets that back. So we're really
Dude
excited to
was
start.
dude was so bad. Dude was like it's like propping up a table, right? You just propped up a table, and if you can run around that table quick enough to get to the quarterback, you get in pressure. If you
Yep,
can't run around that table quick enough, then you may not. But the only thing he could do was be big. He had no other redeeming qualities. None.
agree,
So bad. We
agreed.
knew it. We knew it the minute they drafted him, you knew it.
Yeah, you definitely knew it. Well, no, no. People had some. People were excited about the pick initially because of how far he fell. I do remember that. People had some excitement about his upside. People thought he fell further. I think people had him as like a third or fourth round. He fell to the sixth round. And so there was
Who,
some hype
who
about
were
that.
these people?
Everyone. I remember it. I remember it very distinctly. But as soon as we saw him on the field,
His name is Stone.
we at that point understood why he was sixth round pick.
His name is Stone. He ain't gonna be any good. I'm sorry.
I do remember there being some buzz about the kid,
Okay.
but that died so fast you don't even remember it. It's like it didn't happen.
Died a
That
quick
it
death.
died so yeah, it died
Quick.
so quickly. I think I remember it in like rookie mini camp
Uh,
was the last time he had buzz.
I'm glad he's. I'm glad he's gone.
All right. Be sure to follow the show. Oh, wait, Tino, tell the people they can find you first.
Tino Junior 20 on Blue Sky. Baseball season is at full throttle right now. We'll be going back and forth a bit more about the Seahawks coming up here quickly. Certainly college football. Less active, more involved with work, but I'll try to do what I can.
Absolutely. So be sure to follow the show on at Seahawks 360 Podcast on X and on Blue Sky. We are at Seahawks 360. So give us a like and a follow. If you listen on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe. In the meantime, that's all the time we have for today. We're out. And as always,
Go Hawks.